Hello and welcome to the 6th CTIS Walk-in Clinic of 2024. My name is Teresa Calandri and I'm a project assistant at the EMA. Here is the agenda for today. Let me start with some housekeeping rules. Questions have been collected via Slido till November the 13th using the code #clinic248. If the video screen is blurry or difficult to see, please read the instructions in the gray box underneath the live broadcast section on the events page. There you can find a link to watch the live broadcast on full screen. Please make sure you have a stable internet connection. For more additional information on CTIS, you can consult various resources, some of them listed on this slide. The Clinical Trials Highlights newsletter, the CTIS training and support page, and for guidance on CTR interpretation, you can consult the UDRLX Volume 10. We have an update on CTIS training environments. The CTIS training environment survey is reopened. On the slide, you have the link to address and the QR code for the survey. The survey collects expressions of interest in accessing the CTIS training environments. All details will serve to proactively identify the needs and intentions of those of CTIS and grant access accordingly. I would like now to introduce you to our experts. We have Monique Al, Coordinator Special Advisor at TCMO, Marita Kaila Harvey, Clinical Assessor at the Finnish Medicines Agency, Ornella Demi, Change Manager at the EMA, and Giovanni Barricchio, Scientific Specialist at the EMA. The Q&A session starts now. We're going to go with the first question. We noticed documents disappearing from CTIS, even from submitted applications from the All Documents section. Do you expect such system behavior to stop? Giovanni?
Hello. We are aware of this problem, especially related to the All Documents section, and the priority of resolution has been increased for this issue, so it will be solved as soon as possible. The general advice, in any case, is to raise a ticket for each problem you encounter, because the priority of resolution of problems is also based on the number of tickets we receive. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni. Next question. Currently, if we have a Part 2 SM under review for country X, we cannot open a Part 2 non-substantial modification draft for country Y. Is there any plan for a change in this type of system behavior? It becomes problematic when the good conduct from the good conduct of a clinical trial. Giovanni?
Thank you for this question. This is acknowledged. We also had discussion about this issue, and I just want to emphasize that as soon as possible, the non-SM submission will follow the same rules of the substantial modification. So there will be this possibility in future and as soon as possible. Thank you.
Next question. Last week, we were in a draft substantial modification application. We completed the structured data. It was saved. After 2 days, everything disappeared. Is this a known issue? Ornella, please.
Thank you, Teresa. So thank you for bringing this issue to our attention. Indeed, this is not a non-issue to us, so it's neither recorded in the list of known issues. So as a first step, I would kindly ask you to check internally to determine if any changes have been made to the roles in the system, or if there is a colleague that may have mistakenly cancelled the draft of the substantial modification application. And if this is not the case, I would like to please ask you to raise a ticket with the service now and include as much and detailed information as possible. If this is possible, please include also pictures, as this will enable us to investigate the issue even further and then help you more, provide more support to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ornella. Next question. Sponsors should inform member states concerned with undue delay of early end of trial. There are cases where last patient last visit in the trial is much later than end of trial decision. If sponsor notifies LPLV in line with CTIS require, are sponsor obligations related to early EOT fulfilled? Marita, please.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Marita Kailijärvi. Welcome to this forum. No, this needs to be informed by early end of trial as of Article 37 or 38, depending on the situation of CTR. And so both notifications need to be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Marita. Next question. Is increase of the number of patients on the insurance substantial modification or non-substantial modification in case the total number of planned patients per study remains the same or the increase is insignificant? Annex 4, not clear. Substantial modification, if interpreted, is that insurance conditions change. Monique, please.
Okay, also welcome from my side to this CTIS walk-in clinic. The answer to the question is as follows. Well, insurance for trial participants is regulated by national law. So even though the total number of planned trial participants for the whole trial does not change, an increase in the number of patients in a certain member state could lead to a change in the insurance cover. If the insurance covers only a specific number of trial participants, any increase in the planned number of trial participants should be reflected in the insurance cover, and the sponsor should take action. Well, the updated insurance certificate can be submitted as a non-SM, a non-substantial modification, or with the next substantial modification, part 2.
Thank you, Monique. Next question. Concomitant medicines are not AXMP plus not relevant for the trial design. If centrally provided by the sponsor, should be relabeled for CT? If not, which is the legal basis to be QP released in a certain member state concerned country and to be sent to the trial sites? Monique, please.
Okay. So we are talking about concomitant medications, and these are medicinal products which are no IMP and no AXMP. And these products should be distributed and labeled according to the requirements of the Directive 2001/83/EC. With other words, just the standard of care, normal clinical practice. With respect to the distribution, there could be national law applicable. So labeling should be in the national language, of course, and for distribution of the medicinal product, I would like to refer to the National Provision Overview of the recommendation paper on decentralized elements in clinical trials, where you can find the specific for the distribution of products for the different member states concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Next question. Circumstantial events like serious breaches, unexpected events, etc., are subject of member states' concern assessment and publication. Are these notifications always assessed or only as needed? Marita, please.
Thank you. Yes, these are always assessed. It is the responsibility of the member states to assess all these notifications.
Thank you, Marita. Next question. Once local end of trial is notified in CTIS, substantial modification or non-substantial modifications are no longer possible for the respective member state concerned. Our understanding is that in this case, there is no expectation to submit any amendments for principal investigator change, site closures, etc., given the system behavior. Monique, please.
Yeah, just under the assumption that in this case, a local end of trial means that the clinical trial is ended according to protocol in the member state concerned, and there are no longer any trial-related procedures. In that case, substantial modifications, well, if any, question mark. So no substantial modifications, if any, have to be submitted. So I'm in line with the assumption which was presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. AXMP with marketing authorization in member states and distribute to another member state for CT. No need to be in CTIS per guidance. Should translated SMPC be provided to sites? Should it be submitted in CTIS and where? Should it be relabeled and marketing importation authorization of the site submitted in CTIS? Marita, please.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we agree with that. There is no need for the AXMPs with marketing authorization to be in CTIS. And as for the sites that are using it, the SMPC or any similar information and guidance for the staff to use the AXMP in question are needed. And we don't need it in CTIS. And whether it should be relabeled or not is a question of national legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What date to report as end of recruitment? CTR does not define, but date is to be reported per member state. Can the date of last patient enrolled globally be reported for all member state concerned? Recruitment is open in all regions until the last patient enrolled. Marita, please.
Yes, if it's the question of competitive recruitment, as it seems according to this question, then the last patient enrolled anywhere in any region is the end of recruitment. However, in other arrangements, where if a site is already closed in that member state, the arrangements might differ, and these might then be member state specifically defined. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Is it required to submit up-to-date good manufacturing practices documents, example, manufacturing authorization, throughout the life cycle of the study? Marita, again, please.
Yes, these are required throughout the life cycle of the study, depending on the change in the certificates. For it might be that it's a non-substantial modification if it's a minor change, but always a cover letter explaining what was changed would be needed with those as well, so that it's easily seen. So, and with major changes, they would actually obviously be substantial modifications. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question. Is additional labeling per CTR Annex 6C considered as authorization modification, and would it require submission of MIA or AXMPD, IMPD or IMP, test product comparator, and or AXMP? Monique, please.
Yeah, thank you. So the question refers to CTR Annex 6C. And this specific text refers again to Article 67.2 of the CTR. And this article is about specific cases where additional labeling of authorized IMPs or authorized AXMP is required. So in that case, when you have additional labeling for authorized IMP or authorized AXMP, the additional label needs to be submitted. No other documents, but please explain in the protocol why additional labeling was needed for this specific product in the study. So thank you.
Thank you. Next question. How to report start event, trial, etc. for a complex trial with multiple subprotocols submitted under one EUCT. Dates should be reported for each subprotocol, but CTIS does not permit this. Monique?
Yeah. It's correct that CTIS does not facilitate the reporting in this case, and therefore start and end date of the subprotocols in this complex clinical trial, where the clinical trial is submitted under one AUCT number. That's important to mention. So, but the start and end date should be provided in the overview of the state of play of all the subprotocols, which is part of any substantial modification submission. So if you have a substantial modification in any of the parts of this study, you also have to submit an overview of the state of play for each subprotocol. There you can indicate which subprotocol has started, which subprotocol has ended, and this is has to be done for every substantial modification. After a subprotocol is ended, well, this was not part of the question, but I just added because it's also important to mention, I think, that after a subprotocol has ended, the results of this subprotocol can be uploaded in the placeholder intermediate results in CTIS. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because there's also not a specific placeholder for subprotocol results. But of course, we want to receive them, and that can then be done in the intermediate results placeholder in CTIS.
Thank you, Monique. Next question. What type of notification is needed for an unexpected event leading to urgent safety measure of temporary halts? Should this be notified via three different formalities: unexpected event, urgent safety measure, and temporary halt? It seems unnecessary duplication. Marita?
Thank you. Well, usually we would prefer one notification, but so that you can choose from urgent safety measure according to Article 54 of CTR, that is a serious benefit risk effect, and as it says, urgent safety measure, or an unexpected event according to Article 53. However, there is a need to notify of a temporary halt if one of these events leads to that, as this is actually required by Article 37 separately. So either USM or unexpected event, and if there's a need for temporary halt, then that also. Thank you.
Thank you, Marita. Next question. Are there any intentions to increase number of potential Part 1 slots to be open for modification during non-substantial modification 81.9 application, example, protocol? Giovanni?
This is in the backlog, and also this is high priority. This will be implemented hopefully in the third or fourth quarter of the 2025, but unfortunately we cannot give you precise timelines. But in any case, we will keep you updated as soon this functionality will be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni. Next question. Change of sponsor is specific substantial modification without upload of docs. When should impacted documents, example protocol or insurance, be submitted together with a future substantial modification? Monique?
Yeah, the impacted documents can be submitted as a separate substantial modification or with the next substantial modification if this takes place in due time. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Next question. If end of trial is notified during ongoing substantial modification, what is expected in terms of review? Will substantial modification review continue? Marita?
Yes, we will continue the review of substantial modification unless it is withdrawn totally. But yes, we will continue our work.
Thank you. Next question. Should labels used for AXMPs, purpose being to have info in national language, be submitted for approval? Monique?
Well, no labels in national language have to be submitted for authorized AXMP, which have been labeled according to Title 5 of Directive 2001/83. So again, normal practice. Only in cases where additional labeling for those products are required. In that case, the additional label text should be provided for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. In line with EU CTR Q&A, site closure is non-substantial modification. Can you please clarify if member state concerned considers site closure date as last patient last visit at the site or the termination visit at those sites? Marita?
Yes, thank you. Site closures, individual site closures are indeed considered non-substantial modifications, and this can be seen in the CTR questions and answers document in Annex 4 table. Date should be that of a termination visit because there is usually actions still going on in the site, like monitoring, queries to be answered, archiving, and so forth. So after last patient, last visit, so rather termination visit than LPLV. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Could EMA have more frequent look at questions asked in all the Slidos and update clarify more frequently the Q&A doc? Thank you, Ornella.
Thank you, Teresa. So thank you for the suggestions. Indeed, we strive to ensure that all the queries are addressed in a timely and comprehensive manner. And then we try to balance this with the need to provide consistent and accurate information across all platforms. And while we aim to update the Q&A document regularly, we will certainly take your feedback into account and explore on ways to enhance this process. So including here reviewing questions from Slido more frequently as it is suggested. Again, thank you for your valuable input, and we appreciate your understanding as we work to provide a clear and up-to-date guidance for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What is the current timeline for CTIS enhancements, such as allowing a non-substantial modification to update the protocol and protocol synopsis? Would this be implemented by 31st of January 2025, or are enchantments not expected for 6 to 12 months or more? Giovanni, please.
Yes, this question has been addressed also before. As mentioned, unfortunately, we cannot provide a precise date. I can tell that anyway, we cannot implement this functionality by the 31st January 2025. Hopefully, it will be implemented in the third or fourth quarter of the 2025. But in any case, the information about this functionality will be disseminated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Should a track changes version of the document be labeled in the next substantial modification or be updated by a new version? Marita?
Yes, thank you. This is a short answer. Updated, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. When will the CTIS functionality to provide a download of the list of documents with versions and dates will become available? Giovanni?
Okay, so I would like also to emphasize that a ticket for this functionality has been created. So this is in our backlog. Unfortunately, we cannot provide specific timelines for the implementation of this functionality because we prioritize things based on the urgence of the issue in general. So we first gave priority to the most urgent things to implement, and then we go to further implementation in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. If a member state issues a negative decision on the first Part 1 substantial modification after transition, must the sponsor immediately resubmit Part 1 substantial modification, or can the old Part 1 documents, Protocol IB, be used in that member state until a Part 1 substantial modification is again needed? Monique?
Well, in general, it's acceptable to use the old Part 1 documents until the next substantial modification Part 1. Well, depending on the reasons, of course, for the rejection, this could be different. So I would say that you have to contact the RMS to see if that's acceptable, because I don't know what were the reasons to reject. So in general, fine, but please see what the reasons are and contact the RMS, the reporting member states, to see, to hear from them if it's allowed to wait for the next substantial modification. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. About change in sample size, could we agree that substantial modification will be required as per the approach recommended by B-Form? Example, if the sample size is changing by more or less 10%. Recommendations on complex clinical trials, point 3. Marita?
Yes, this is an acceptable limit, plus minus 10% of change, usually, generally. But when the question is about the very, very last trials, where there are, let's say, tens of thousands of participants, the number of participants changing with 10% is also then large. And we would consider the actual number of participants also when considering if the change needs a substantial modification or not. So generally, yes, 10% is acceptable limit, but when large studies are changed, then that might come to an SM. Thanks.
Thank you. Next one. If end of trial has been declared for RMS, but the trial is continuing in other member state concerned, would proof of payment still be needed for RMS for all next Part 1 substantial modification? Marita?
Well, yes, it would be needed, as RMS has the responsibility of overseeing the assessment of the SM and handling the coordination of all other MSCs. So yes, thanks.
Thank you. Next one. For trials which are temporarily halted, we cannot submit non-substantial modification. Is this CTIS behavior expected to change? Giovanni?
Yes, this is going to change, and in future there will be the possibility to submit non-substantial modification even if the status of your trial is halted. So there will be more flexibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. Annex 6 CTR refers to a clinical trial reference code allowing identification of the trial on the label. Is sponsor's protocol code enough, or must EUCT number be added to label when completing the dossier with first substantial modification after transition? Monique?
Yeah, so it concerns a transition trial, just to be clear on that. And in that case, for the labeling of IMP and AXMP, it's expected that the sponsor update the label for those batches that are labeled or have to be relabeled for whatever reason after the authorization under the CTR. Also, old labels can still be used after transition for IMP batches manufactured after transition if the new label is not yet approved in an SM Part 1 application.
Thank you. Next one. From an inspection point of view, which documents from CTIS must be filed in the investigator site file? Marita?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this hasn't changed when CTIS and CTR came to force. So it's actually still the same GCP rules, good clinical practice rules that are in force. So section 8 there. And whether it's electronic or paper ICF, it should be preferably agreed with the investigator, but still the same documents as always. And we discussed this with our inspectors.
Thank you. Next one. How to submit audio-video recruitment materials in CTIS. Is it possible to upload these formats, Monique?
It's not possible to upload audio or video material in CTIS, and it's currently under discussion within the MedEthics EU, which format is expected to be uploaded for the review. Currently, there are so many different ways this material is uploaded in the system, and we want to give some clarification and a little bit more harmonized view on this. So under review and hopefully under discussion, hopefully some clarity will be soon available. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Next one. We have experienced that some member states request that their answers to RFIs are answered in their local language. In our opinion, this is not okay, as English should be the communication language for international trials. How can we deal with these requests? Monique?
Okay. Yeah, CTCG and MedEthics EU are aware of the challenges with some language requirement, and it's currently under discussion when it's acceptable or not acceptable. Just give an example where I think it's acceptable, of course, if you have questions about the subject information sheet, which is written in the national language. It seems a little bit odd to translate everything in English back and forth all the time. But there are situations where there is room for improvement. That's what I said, it's under discussion, and hopefully we can clarify this also in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. How to handle site closure in CTIS. There are some health authorities asking to delete the sites from trial sites tab in CTIS. Is this correct? Is a process established for this? Where is it described? What about site documents if the site is deleted? Monique?
In case clinical trial sites are closed, and I don't want to go into the reasons why they are closed, so they are closed, and the system allows the removal of these sites. So if what was the example here, there are some health authority requesting this is perfectly fine. You can remove them from CTIS, and so you only have then the latest overview of only active sites. So only active sites are presented in the latest overview. But the sites are not completely deleted from the system, because if you go to any previous submission within this clinical trial application, you can still see the sites and you can still access the documents which were submitted as part of this application. So just be reassured, your sites are still there. They are only not visible if you distract the latest overview of the clinical trial sites. I hope this clarifies it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. For a substantial modification application that contains an updated IMPD, is it mandatory to submit a summary of changes document for the updated IMPD, or cleaning track changes versions of the IMPD will be enough? Monique?
A summary of changes plus a clean and track changes version is mandatory for any substantial modification as written in Annex 2 of the clinical trial regulation. And this is also applicable for a substantial modification of the IMPD. And to add to this, I think the quality assessors really welcome it to have both documents which really facilitate their assessment. So thank you for providing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Next one. If a trial enrolls more patients than planned, must this change be submitted as a substantial modification? Is there a threshold where enrolling a small percentage over what is planned, not a substantial modification? A non-substantial modification in CTIS is unable to update enrollment. Marita, please.
Yes, this was actually discussed with a previous question as well. So we still do consider 10% of what was planned previously as a substantial modification that should be informed and submitted to us as ASM. As the question states, NSM is not able to update the enrollment at all. However, again, if the trial is very large with thousands of participants, then that 10% might be too large. So the actual number of participants that are more to that than that was planned actually matters as well. So there is assessment needed by the sponsor as well for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. Is it possible to change documents from for publication to not for publication during the process of evaluation, or do we have to wait? If it's possible, how can we achieve this? Giovanni?
Yes. First of all, I would like to underline that it's important to have the correct information published on the public portal, but without disclosing CCI or personal data. So if during an assessment the sponsor realizes that some documents have been wrongly uploaded in the slot for publication, they may proceed with the change, for example, during an RFI response, or, for example, they could liaise directly with the authority to ask for an additional round of RFI in order to perform the proper changes. It is important in any case that if, for example, they perform this changing during RFI that have been raised for other reason, it is important to clarify when replying this RFI why they performed this change and make this very clear to the authority that assess the RFI. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. Recruitment is temporarily stopped for IMP supply shortage with no impact on safety or benefit risk treatment of already enrolled patients is ongoing. Is this to be notified as temporary halt, any unplanned interruption as per Q&A, or as end of recruitment in CTIS? Marita?
Thank you. As the treatment of enrolled patients is still ongoing, it's not a temporary halt. There are still trial procedures ongoing, but it's an end of recruitment notification that needs to be done in the CTIS, and that is according to Article 36.3. And when the recruitment is restarted, then that needs to be notified as well, which is stated in Article 36.1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. Based on the Q&A July 2024, site address change classified as non-substantial modification is to be submitted as non-substantial modification due to technical reasons, but trial sites does not have this functionality. In December 2023, it was advised to submit substantial modification. Could you please confirm how to proceed? Giovanni.
Thank you. Many thanks for this question, so that we can clarify. As you know, it is not possible to change the address during a non-substantial modification. This is a mistake in the guidance, and it will be rectified as soon as possible. Since this is non-SM, non-belonging to the category of non-SM 81.9, this non-SM should be submitted at the next substantial modification, when there is the necessity to submit the next substantial modification. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. What is the best practice when an end-of-trial notification is entered during the evaluation of a substantial modification? Can be the member state concerned still complete evaluations on CTIS? Should the application be withdrawn in that member state concerned? Marita? Marita, we cannot hear you or see you.
Sorry, techniques. Yes, we can still complete the evaluation. So unless you wish to withdraw the application, that which can always be done, then we will continue the evaluation still. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question. Some ethics committees in Belgium raise RFIs requiring the exact dose in the informed consent form, even when redacted non-public dose in the ICF jeopardizes patients. This is not aligned with EU CTR and EMA guidance. Are ethics committees free to set new requirements? Monique?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for this question. Since this is specifically for Belgium, not knowing the exact background, I would like to advise the one who has asked the question to contact the national contact point from Belgium. And there is an overview of the national contact points published on Euderlex Volume 10. You can see who is the national contact point from Belgium, including the contact details, and forward this to Belgium. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Next question. How impact on site suitability should be defined to decide if site address change is substantial modification or non-substantial modification? Monique again?
Yeah, thank you. Well, site suitability is about suitability of facilities, suitability of equipment, human resources, expertise. So if the change of address has also a significant impact on one of these factors, it might require a new site suitability statement by the head of the trial site or any other responsible for a person. I don't expect this will happen very often, but to absolutely be sure whether it's needed or not, I would ask the reviewing medical research ethics committee in case of any doubts. So,
Thank you. Next question. What can a sponsor do when a revision to the IB has been issued, but the CTA in CTIS is currently under evaluation, thus blocking the submission of the revised IB as a substantial modification? Is there a way to notify member states, MS, SEC, of revised IB first, then submit substantial modification? Marita?
Well, it's understood that from the question that this is an initial CTA under evaluation, and then there's their new IB has been issued at that time. There is no way to inform or change the IB during the evaluation, and contacts outside CTIS are not recommended either. So we would recommend to submit the IB as a SM directly after the authorization of the trial or the SM, whatever has been ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. According to Q&A, change in financial arrangements and comp-paid is substantial modification. For many of member states concerned, draft side contracts budgets are submitted and then negotiated, so may differ from drafts. If drafts are updated, should those be submitted as a substantial modification? Monique?
Yeah, I understand the question is about the clinical trial site agreements, including annexes with budgets. Clinical trial site agreements, so an agreement between sponsor and site, is not in all member states a mandatory document to submit for review. So the MedEthics EU webpage, there is an overview of Part 2 requirements from 70 member states currently, where you can see for which of the member state they request this clinical trial site agreement, including the budget, the whole budget for the clinical trial. And I would say please contact those member states for which this agreement with those full budget overview is mandatory. And they have to indicate whether they want to, if they want to receive it, when to receive it. It's hard for me to answer this question currently. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Next one. What notification is to be used in CTIS when clinical trials is modified after futility analysis? There is no benefit or risk or safety concern. The patients who benefit from their treatment may continue, but no new patients will be enrolled. Marita, please.
Okay, thank you. So if there indeed is no change in the benefit-risk ratio or no safety concern, this could be simply an end of recruitment notification. Obviously, if there's any assessment that would be needed, if there's any safety concern, then it should be a substantial modification to maybe also to the number of participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Marita. Next question. If a site is closed, what is the recommendation for the site-related documents in CTIS when we submit the site closure? Should the documents be removed or maintained in CTIS? Should the site be removed from CTIS list of sites? Marita?
Well, this depends really on where we are with the trial in its life cycle. And we understand that this question might be related to the public portal, what is shown in the public portal. And so it's more to the sponsor to decide what they wish to show in the public portal for that particular moment. And as Monique earlier stated, even if the site is removed from the CTI's list of sites, it's not completely lost. It can be seen in the previous versions, and so it really depends on the sponsor's assessment of the whole situation, what should be shown in the public portal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. The new transparency rules override previous data and documents. How can the public track changes in study design, endpoints, patients population? Clinical trials government retains this information as a World Health Organization primary registry, but CTIS does not. Giovanni, please.
The new CTIS public portal aims at simplifying the published information about clinical trials, and this is the reason why it now publishes only the latest and most updated information that are also the current data that are available on each trial in the CTIS workspaces. This logic has also been applied to the EU CTR, that is the registry for trials that are conducted under the Clinical Trial Directive, and also the EU CTR is a WHO primary registry. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one. The inability to modify the trial category in CTIS after approval of the initial application can encourage sponsors to gain approval for a lower category, then change to a higher category via substantial modification. CTIS should allow updating of trial category. Giovanni, please.
Okay, thank you for this question. Given considering that the sponsor should select the right category when submitting a clinical trial, and also the transparency is one of the main pillars of the clinical trial regulation, in future there will be the possibility to change the category via substantial modification. Thanks.
Thank you. Next one. In part 2, final assessment reports, ethic committees are rejecting EMA and European Commission guidance cited in RFI responses. Example, German Ethics Committee requiring patient cards be submitted in a Part 1 substantial modification. Are MedEthics EU, EMA, and the Commission aligned? Monique, please.
Yeah, without having the specifics of this case, it's difficult to come up with a conclusive answer. But in general, a patient card is not required, except in cases where address and telephone number of the main trial contact are not required on the label. And this information is presented on the patient contact card. Just for a reference, it's in Annex 6 of the CTR, Section A, Paragraph 3. So in these cases, we do require a patient card or a statement from the sponsor that this is captured on a patient card. To be honest, this is not, my answer is not yet reflected in any guidances or Q&As which we have on the websites, but this is the approach. So that could be the reason that they are asking, but for any other reason, it should not be submitted as part of the application. Yep.
Thank you, Monique. Next question. Some studies in CTIS have incorrect trial categorization. For example, this clinical trial is phase 1 and 2 by category 1. Will incorrect categorizations be corrected, or are sponsors free to select a different category to prevent publication? Giovanni, please.
Okay. First of all, a clarification about this, because each category is subject to publication according to the new revised transparency rule, and the sponsor should select the proper category as per rules. It can happen that for a particular reason or for particular trials, the category changes because of a change of the trial phase in the protocol. Per current system behavior, it is not possible to change a category via substantial modification, but this is in our backlog, and as soon as possible this will be implemented. Once this change will be implemented, it is expected that the sponsor will submit a substantial modification to change the category and in order to have the proper information correctly published on the public portal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. For ASR submissions, Will it be made possible to download a PDF of the successful submission? This document needs to be stored in the TMF. Currently, only screenshots are possible. Ornella?
Thank you, Teresa. So yes, there is a possibility to store the ASR information as PDF. So besides the snapshots, you can also print out the ASR view page in PDF by using the print functionality that you will have on the browser where you have opened the CTIS. And then once you have chosen that functionality, then further on you choose the option Save as PDF. And then in this way you will have the information you need saved as a PDF file. Thank you.
Thank you, Ornella. And then last question of the CTIS walk-in clinic is, complex cohorts trials, must we notify the SOR, EOR per cohort? How to correctly do so if cohorts start recruiting at different times and recruitment months in them overlap? Monique?
Okay, thank you. This is more or less a similar question with respect to the reporting of the start and end date. This is about start of recruitment, end of recruitment. Of course, if you have your sub-protocols under different EUCT numbers, then you can manage within the system. If it's all within one EUCT number, then this also has to be reflected in this overview, which I talked before. So with every substantial modification, the sponsor should provide an overview of the state of play for each of the cohorts or sub-protocols or whatever you want to call them, and really give an overview which sub-protocol is started with recruitment, with the inclusion of the first patient has been ended. And this would also be done, just to be clear, on a member state level. I forgot to say that if you have the trial running in more than one member state. So this is how we can manage it currently, because CTIS is not facilitating this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Monique. And this takes us to a notification on the winter clock stop for you to know that all timers win the evaluation of a clinical trial application will stop on 22nd of December 2024 at midnight and resume on the 8th of January 2025. And due to this winter clock stop, the timelines for the applications may be affected. More information is available in the CTIS evaluation timelines documents. So thank you for attending this session of the CTIS walk-in clinic. The post-event survey is now open so that you can share your satisfaction with the events. You can provide your feedback in Slido using the passcode #clinic248. A recording will be available on the EMA website following the event. You can sign up for the CT Highlights newsletter for information on when the videos are available. The questions will be used as input to EMA training and support materials. We hope you enjoyed this CTIS walk-in clinic, and we look forward to hearing your feedback on the post-event survey.